Imagine, if you have the stomach for it, a creature the size of a human infant. It hovers in the smoky air of a cathedral, held aloft not by the grace of the divine, but by the whining hum of anti-gravitic motors implanted into its spine. Its skin is the pallid, waxy color of old parchment, smelling faintly of formaldehyde and sacred incense. It has the face of a child, round and unblemished, but its eyes are gone, replaced by glowing red optical lenses that click and zoom with mechanical precision. It carries no harp, and it sings no song of joy. Instead, its tiny, putty hands are stained with grease and gun oil as it struggles to lift a heavy bolter magazine, feeding ammunition to a sister of battle in the heat of combat. This is the Cherubim. To the uninitiated, it is a nightmare or perverse mockery of life that combines the sanctity of youth with the cold brutality of the machine. To the Imperium, however, it is beautiful. This creature represents the ultimate paradox of the 41st millennium. In a galaxy consumed by war, where human life is the cheapest currency available, the image of a child is not a symbol of hope or future potential. It is a symbol of sacrifice. It is a tool. The cherub is not born to grow, to learn, or to love. It is created to serve, frozen forever in a state of artificial infancy, denied the mercy of death until its mechanical components finally fail. We are often told that the Imperium values humanity above all else, but when you look into the dead, lens-shuttered eyes of a cherub, you are forced to ask a terrifying question. What definition of humanity allows for this? Today, we are not just looking at a strange unique type or a piece of Gothic set dressing. We are dissecting the theological and biological core of the cherubim to understand where they come from, how they are made, and why the servants of the Emperor find comfort in such monstrosities. To understand the cherub, you must first discard your modern sensibilities regarding the sanctity of the body and the concept of childhood. In the cold logic of the Adeptus Mechanicus, a cherub is technically classified as a form of Servitor, a cybernetic construct built from biological components. However, this definition is dangerously simplistic. A standard Servitor is a punishment. It is a criminal or a heretic who has been lobotomized and repurposed for manual labor. A cherub, by contrast, is a sanctified construct. They are not born of sin, but of a twisted form of reverence. Visually, they occupy a space of intense psychological horror known as the Uncanny Valley, but amplified by 10,000 years of technological regression. They are designed to mimic the beauty of ancient Earth's Renaissance art, those chubby, winged spirits that adorn the frescoes of forgotten cathedrals. But in the translation to the Grimdark, the art has rotted. The wings are rarely functional. Often, they are ragged feathers bolted onto metal frames, or merely decorative exhaust vents for the suspension fields that actually keep the creature aloft. Their movements are jerky, dictated by simple logic engines rather than a nervous system, creating a disturbing puppet-like quality that the pious citizens of the Imperium mistake for divine grace. It is crucial to distinguish the cherub from its grim cousin, the servo skull. A servo skull is the skull of a pious servant, preserved to continue their work after death. It is a relic of the past. A cherub is a mockery of the future. It represents potential that has been rested. It is an infant that will never grow old, never learn to doubt, and never turn away from the Emperor's light. This is why the Ecclesiarchy favors them so heavily. In a galaxy where the human mind is a gateway for demons, an unthinking and aging child is the safest companion one could ask for. An inquisitor of the Ordo Hereticus once wrote in a suppressed treatise regarding his preference for these constructs, "I prefer the company of a cherub to that of a man. A man can lie. A man can fall to chaos. A man can harbor secret treasons in his heart, masking his corruption with a smile. But a cherub, it is innocence manufactured. It is purity standardized. It has no soul to sell, and thus, it is the only thing in this galaxy that is truly incorruptible. This quote reveals the core function of the Cherub. It is not merely a tool for carrying scrolls or reloading bolters. It is a psychological shield. High-ranking cardinals, canonesses, and inquisitors surround themselves with flocks of these creatures to project an aura of holiness. They serve as familiars, linked to their masters via neural planes, allowing them to see what the Cherub sees. But unlike a cybermaster for a cyber eagle, the Cherub evokes a specific emotional response. It demands protection, even as it serves. Yet, there is a horrifying duality to their existence. They are treated as beloved pets, fed nutrient paste from silver spoons, draped in purity seals. But beneath the gilding and the velvet robes lies a biological reality that is far more disturbing than simple robotics. They are warm to the touch. They have a pulse, and sometimes, if you listen closely to the hum of their anti-grav motors, you can hear them whimper not from pain, perhaps, but from the primitive, vestigial reflexes of a brain that was never meant to be trapped in a cage of gold and iron. They are the eternal infants of the Imperium, a testament to the belief that ignorance is not just bliss, it is a survival trait. But where do these bodies come from? The official story tells of Vat-Grown clones, devoid of parents and history. But the Imperium is vast, and its secrets are dark. The truth of their creation is a secret that the Magi biologists guard with their lives. The official narrative of the Imperium is one of convenient sterility. If you were to ask a lowly scribe or a hive-world citizen where the Cherubim come from, they would likely point vaguely towards the priesthood of Mars and whisper about sacred alchemy. They believe these creatures are summoned, or perhaps constructed from synthetic meat like a ration bar. But the truth is far more visceral, and it begins deep within the iron bowels of the Adeptus Mechanicus, in facilities known as the janitor halls. These are not clean, white laboratories. They are cathedrals of flesh and iron, choked with the smell of ozone, formaldehyde, and the copper tang of blood. Here, in the flickering light of lumen globes, rows upon rows of glass tanks stretch up into the darkness of the ceiling. Inside each tank, suspended in a thick, amber-colored nutrient gel, floats a human infant. This is the first whore of the Cherub. It is not a robot. It is biological. According to the high lore of the Magi biologists, the majority of Cherubs are Vat-Grown. This means they are clones, replicated from genetic templates that have been preserved for millennia. These templates are often taken from heroes of the Imperium martyrs, saints, or individuals of genetic perfection so that the resulting creature might carry a spark of that holy purity. But a clone is still a human being. It has a heart that beats, lungs that draw breath, and a brain capable of dreaming. In these tanks, the process of growth is not natural. It is accelerated through the injection of harsh chemical cocktails and hormonal stimulants. The process that should take 9 months is compressed into weeks. The biological stress on the developing tissue is immense. Many of the fetuses do not survive the acceleration. Their organs fail, their bones liquefy, or their minds shatter before they even wake. These failures are simply flushed away, recycled into the nutrient paste that feeds the survivors. It is a Darwinian nightmare played out in silence, behind glass. For those that survive the gestation, there is no mother to hold them. There is only the cool, metallic grasp of a mechadendrite plucking them from the amniotic fluids. They are decanted, a word the Mechanicus uses to distance themselves from the act of birth. At this stage, the Cherub is physically perfect. It is a healthy, often chubby human infant. But this is where the Magi begin their work, for the Imperium does not need a child. It needs a tool. The transition from biological infant to sanctified Cherub is a process of surgical violence. The first step is the stunting. The creature is injected with a series of potent alchemical retardants, These chemicals freeze the biological aging process. The cells are locked in a state of perpetual infancy. A cherub created today will look exactly the same in 500 years. It will never grow taller. Its voice will never break, and it will never reach puberty. It is trapped in a biological stasis, a living statue of youth. Next comes the augmentation. Because these creatures are meant to hover, their skeletal structure must be reinforced to bear the weight of the anti-gravitic motors. The spine is the first casualty. The infant's spinal column is surgically accessed, and the vertebrae are fused with plastirods. The bulky anti-grav unit toughened, looking like a heavy backpack. A hump of metal is grafted directly into the nervous system. This is an agonizing procedure, one that requires the subject to be kept alive to ensure neural compatibility. If the cherub is destined to be a loader for a devastator marine or a retributor sister, its arms are often amputated at the elbow or shoulder. In their place, hydraulic claws or magnetic clamps are installed. These limbs possess strength far beyond what a biological child could muster, allowing the tiny creature to lift heavy boulder shells or fuel canisters that would crush a normal man. The juxtaposition is jarring. The soft, dimpled skin of a baby's shoulder merging seamlessly into the cold, black steel of a loading claw. But the most disturbing modification is not to the body, it is to the mind. The Imperium has a deep-seated fear of the abominable intelligence, AI. A machine that thinks for itself is heresy. Therefore, a cherub cannot be allowed to have free will. It cannot be allowed to cry for its mother, to feel fear in the middle of a firefight, or to disobey an order. And so, the Churgians perform the rite of purification. This is a lobotomy. The skull of the infant is open. The frontal lobes, the seat of personality, higher reasoning, and emotion are excised or severed. In their place, a cortex controller or a wafer unit is inserted. This device overrides the brain's natural functions. It turns the child into a biological computer. It programs them with a specific set of subroutines: reload, chant, follow, protect. The result is a creature that is technically alive but functionally dead. It has eyes, but it does not see. It scans. It has a mouth, but it does not speak. It transmits pre-recorded prayers. When a cherub looks at you, there is no recognition behind those glowing lenses. There is only the hum of the processor and the biological instinct to keep the heart beating. This Vat-Grown origin story is the one the Imperium tells itself to sleep at night. It suggests that these creatures were never real people, that they are just biological hardware. But even this sanitized version of the truth is horrifying enough. You are looking at a factory farming system for human beings, where the product is not meat, but eternal slavery packaged in the guise of an angel. And yet, as horrific as the Vat-Grown process is, it is clean, it is industrial, it is controlled. But in the 41st millennium, resources are often scarce, and vats can malfunction. There are whispers in the underhives and the dark corridors of the Inquisition that not all cherubs come from the gene labs of Mars. Some come from much darker, more desperate sources. This brings us to the rumors that the Ecclesiarchy tries desperately to suppress the rumors of biological recycling. The Adeptus Mechanicus would have you believe that every cherub hovering in the strategium of a chapter master is a masterpiece of genetic engineering, a purebred clone, grown in a sterile vat from the finest genetic stock. They present a sanitized image of industry, clean glass, bubbling nutrients, and precise machinery. But anyone who has lived in the Imperium for more than a day knows that clean and precise are lies we tell ourselves to mask the rot. The reality of the 41st millennium is one of decay, scarcity, and desperate improvisation. That growing is an expensive, resource-intensive process. It requires stable power grids, rare chemical compounds, and arcane technology that the Mechanicus hoards jealously. But the demand for a Cherubim is endless. Every Inquisitor wants a familiar. Every Ecclesiarchy cathedral needs a choir. Every Sister of Battle squad needs an ammo hauler. When the demand outstrips the supply of Vat-Grown clones, where does the Imperium turn? The answer lies in the dark rumors of biological recycling. In the grim darkness of the far future, human life is the most abundant and worthless resource available. On the teeming hive worlds, billions of people live in squalor, breeding and dying in the dark. The birth rate is staggering, and the infant mortality rate is even higher. In the eyes of the administratum, a child born in the lower levels of a hive city is not a citizen. It is biomass. It is a statistic. And the Imperium wastes nothing. There are whispers persistent, horrifying whispers that suggest many Cherubim are not clones at all. They are harvested. Consider the penal legions and the prison planets. Hundreds of thousands of criminals are shipped to these worlds to work until they die. But life finds a way. Even in hell, children are born in these prisons, to the gods and the wardens. These infants are a logistical nuisance. They are non-entities, born into a life sentence they did not earn. It is an open secret that Mechanicus biological surveyors often visit these facilities. They inspect the newborns. If a child is healthy, if it shows no signs of chaotic mutation, it is simply taken. The mother is told nothing. Perhaps she is told the child died. Perhaps she is told it was taken to the Schola Progenium to be raised as a servant of the Emperor. In a twisted sense, that is true. The child will serve the Emperor, just not as a soldier. Then there are the tithe rumors. On worlds that struggle to pay their planetary tithes in grain or minerals, there are stories of the flesh tithe. Governors, desperate to meet their quotas and avoid the wrath of the administratum, have been known to round up the surplus population. Orphanages are emptied. The homeless are swept from the streets. The healthy infants are separated from the sick. The sick are incinerated. The healthy are crated up and shipped off-world to the biological facilities of the nearest foot world. Even darker still is the fate of those born with acceptable defects. The Imperium hates the mutant, but the definition of mutation is fluid when resources are low. A child born with a withered leg, a missing eye, or a cleft lip might be rejected by the Schola Progenium or the Imperial Guard. They are waste. But to the creators of Cherubim, these defects are relevant. The leg will be replaced by an anti-grav motor. The eye will be replaced by a sensor ray. The lip will be sewn shut or covered by a vox grill. These natural-born cherubs undergo the same surgeries as their vat-grown counterparts, but the horror is magnified by their origin. These were children who had names. They had mothers who cried for them. They had a brief flash of consciousness, of hunger, of cold, before the lobotomy needle took it all away. Defenders of the practice, if they admit it happens, that all call it an act of mercy. They argue that a child born in the underhive is destined for a short, brutal life of starvation, gang violence, or chaotic corruption. By turning them into a cherub, the Imperium is saving them. They are given a purpose. They are fed. They are encased in holy armor and allowed to serve the God Emperor forever. They argue that it is better to be a mindless, floating angel than a starving, sentient gutter rat. It is a comforting lie. It allows the Inquisitor to look at his floating scribe and see a holy construct, rather than the stolen child of a hive laborer. But the biological reality remains. Whether grown in a tank or torn from a mother's arms, the end result is the same: a human life, hollowed out and filled with machinery, stripped of its future to serve the nightmare of the present. And once the gold plating is applied, once the purity seals are affixed and the mechanical wings are bolted on, you can't tell the difference. A vat-grown clone and a harvested child look exactly the same behind the mask. To the uninitiated, All cherubim may appear as a singular, horrific mass of winged infants, but within the meticulous bureaucracy of the Imperium, they are categorized with the same cold precision as a lascan or a battle tank. They are not merely decorative, they are specialized tools, bespoke crafted to serve the specific needs of the organizations that commission them. The Adeptus Mechanicus does not simply make a cherub, they build a platform for a specific function. The most iconic, and perhaps the most jarring to witness on the battlefield, is the Armorium Cherub. You will find these hovering in the wake of the Adeptus Sororitas Retributor squads or the Space Marine Devastators. Their purpose is simple, yet brutal. They are beasts of burden for the heaviest of ordnance. Picture a creature no larger than a toddler, its spine reinforced with adamantium struts, struggling against the recoil of a multi-melter fuel canister or dragging a crate of heavy bolter shells that weighs more than a grown man. The visual contrast here is the very essence of the 41st millennium. You have the transhuman perfection of a space marine, or the power-armored grace of a sister of battle warriors of immense stature being attended to by these tiny, floating thralls. The Armorium Cherub is programmed with a singular obsession: to keep the gun firing. It does not fear the Xenos bioacid or the heretics' fire. It will fly directly into a kill zone, its anti-grav motors whining in protest, to deliver a single magazine to its master before being blown apart. And if it is destroyed, it is not mourned. It is simply a piece of equipment that has been expended, no different than a spent shell casing. Then, there are the Lord Hailers and Sensor Cherubs. If the Armorium Cherub is a tool of war, these are tools of psychological warfare and dogma. The Lord Hailer is a creature whose primary biological function, speech, has been surgically excised. The throat is cut open, the vocal cords removed, and a high-output Vox gaster unit is shoved into the cavity. Sometimes, the lower jaw is removed entirely to accommodate the speaker, the skin stretched tight around the metal grill. Their purpose is to amplify the prayers of the Ecclesiarchy. In the midst of battle, as the screams of the dying fill the air, these cherubs float above the lines, blasting binary canticles, hymns of hatred, and recorded sermons at deafening volumes. They are living propaganda machines, drowning out the morale-breaking cries of the enemy with the holy noise of the Imperium. They loop the same for all 5 liturgies endlessly, their dead eyes scanning the crowd, their mechanical mouths gaping open in a permanent silent scream, while the Vox gaster does the singing for them. The Sensor Cherub serves a similar ritualistic function, but focuses on the olfactory senses. The Imperium believes that the scent of sacred incense can ward off the corruption of the war. Thus, these cherubs are often fitted with heavy thuribles metal spheres burning with cloying, suffocating smoke swung on chain from their hands, or even grafted directly into their abdominal cavities. They fog the battlefield or the cathedral nave, creating a haze of holy smoke that burns the eyes and lungs, purifying the air of unclean scents. But perhaps the most insidious variant is the inquisitorial or scry cherub. These are the personal familiars of the holy ordos, and like their brute force cousins on the battlefield, these creatures are designed for espionage and record keeping. They are the spies in the room. Often, their eyes are replaced with high-grade pict recorders and spectrum analyzers capable of seeing into the infrared or detecting the faint shimmer. Psychic energy. An inquisitor does not need to look at you to know you are lying. His cherub is recording your micro-expressions. It is measuring your heart rate via thermal imaging. It is cross-referencing your words with a database of known heretical phrases. Some are even equipped with autoquills and endless rolls of parchment, hovering silently in the corner of an interrogation chamber, scratching down every scream and every confession with a robotic, frantic hand. There is a profound horror in the idea of the recording angel. In religious texts, angels record the good deeds of men. In the Imperium, the cherub records your sins. It is a mute witness that cannot be bribed, cannot be reasoned with, and forgets nothing. It is a direct extension of the Inquisitor's will, often neurologically linked to them. When the Inquisitor closes his eyes, he can see through the lenses of his cherub, allowing him to watch his enemies from above, detached and judging. Finally, we must touch upon the medical or chirurgeon cherubs utilized by the Orders Hospitaller. These are perhaps the most grotesque, designed to aid in field surgery. Their tiny hands are replaced with scalpels, bone saws, and syringe fingers. They hover over the wounded, not to comfort, but to cut. To see a child descending upon you with a spinning saw blade, even if it is meant to save your life by amputating a gangrenous limb, is a trauma that few guardsmen ever truly recover from. In all these variants, the underlying theme is the commodification of the human form. The Imperium has taken the most vulnerable image imaginable, a baby, and turned it into a Swiss Army knife of utility. It is a rejection of the natural order so profound that it has become mundane. A sister of battle does not flinch when her cherub is blown out of the sky. She merely reaches for the ammo it dropped. This total desensitization brings us to the most difficult question of all. We know what they are. We know how they are made. But why? Why does the Imperium, a regime obsessed with the human form divine, insist on using such a horrifying aesthetic? The answer lies not in utility, but in the twisted philosophy of Imperial Gothicism. To the modern mind, the cherub is a nightmare. It is a perversion of the most sacred bond in nature, the protection of the young. But to the Imperial mind, the cherub is not horror. It is a necessity. To understand why the Imperium chooses the form of an infant for its menial tasks, we must look beyond the biological and into the philosophical rot at the heart of the 41st millennium. The first reason is practical. Born of ancient trauma, the Imperium of Man is a civilization built on the ashes of the cybernetic revolt. 10,000 years ago, the men of iron, true artificial intelligence, rose up and nearly exterminated humanity. Since that day, the abominable intelligence has been the ultimate heresy. A machine that thinks is a machine that betrays. Therefore, the Imperium cannot use drones. They cannot use automated loader bots or simple AI constructs to carry ammunition. Every machine must have a soul, or at least the wetware of a human brain to process commands. A cherub, with its lobotomized human cortex, is a loophole. It is safe technology. It is biological, not digital. It cannot be hacked by scrap code in the same way a pure machine can. It is loyal because it lacks the capacity to be anything else. But why the form of a child? Why not simply Vat-Grown, a muscular adult for labor? This brings us to the cult of sacrifice. The Imperium is a death cult. Its central icon is a rotting corpse on a throne. Its greatest heroes are martyrs. In this theology, innocence is not something to be preserved. It is something to be spent. The image of the cherub, an eternal infant, is a powerful symbol of purity. In a galaxy corrupted by the war, where thoughts can kill and desires can summon demons, a child is seen as the closest thing to an incorruptible vessel. By arresting their aging, by locking them in a state of permanent infancy, the Imperium believes it is saving them from the corruption of adulthood. They will never know lust, greed, or ambition. They are the holy innocence, frozen in amber. It is a twisted form of mercy. To the Ecclesiarchy, a cherub is not a monster. It is a perfect being, one that serves the Emperor without question, without sin, and without fear. Furthermore, there is the aesthetic of memento mori. Remember, you must die. The High Lords and Cardinals of the Imperium surround themselves with symbols of mortality. Skulls, bones, and weeping angels are the architectural language of the age. The cherub fits this Gothic aesthetic perfectly. It is a living gargoyle. It reminds the observer that life is fleeting, that the flesh is weak, and that even the youngest among us are fuel for the Emperor's fire. Finally, We cannot ignore the aspect of status. In a society of trillions, where life is cheap, a vat-grown cherub is expensive. It requires genetic tailoring, surgical augmentation, and constant maintenance by a tech priest. To own a flock of cherubs is a display of immense wealth and power. It says to the galaxy, I am so pious, and my resources are so vast, that I can afford to create life just to hold my candles. It is the ultimate flex of the aristocracy. A servo skull is for a functionary. A cherub is for a lord. They are pets for the powerful, designed to look like angels but built like appliances. They are the perfect reflection of the Imperium itself, a veneer of golden holiness covering a core of industrial brutality. Now, I ask you to perform the most harrowing act of empathy possible in this universe. Close your eyes and imagine, for a moment, that you are one of them. You do not wake up. You are simply activated. The first sensation is not sight, but weight, a crushing, impossible weight on a spine that was never meant to bear it. But almost instantly, the pain is dull. A chemical cocktail floods your veins, stimulants to keep you alert, analgesics to numb the agony of the surgical scars where the metal meets the meat. You feel light, buoyant, as the anti-grav motor kicks in, lifting your feet from the cold marble floor. You try to speak, to cry out, perhaps to call for a mother you cannot remember, but your throat does not obey. Instead of a cry, a stream of binary static bursts from your vox grill. 1001, praise. 0110, reload. 10111. So, your vision is a wash of red data streams. Target reticules lock onto faces, weapons, and holy icons. You do not see people. You see heat signatures and threat levels. You see an empty bolter magazine, and a compulsion overrides your entire being. It is not a choice. It is a biological imperative, stronger than hunger, stronger than fear. You must retrieve the ammunition. You must feed the gun. But in the quiet moments, when the battles are over and the incense smoke clears, does something remain? The Magos biologists claim the lobotomy is absolute. They say the self is excised, leaving only a wetware processor. But biology is stubborn. Sometimes, deep in the neural pathways that the scalpel missed, a synapse fires, a phantom memory. The ghost of a sensation, the warmth of a touch, the echo of a lullaby. You might find yourself staring at a candle flame, mesmerizingly bright, and for a nanosecond, the data streams vanish. You feel a profound, crushing sadness that you cannot name. You reach out a hand, not the one of flesh, but the claw of iron towards the light. Error. Task irrelevant. Return to station. The cortex controller slams down like a cage door. The emotion is put. The memory is deleted. You are not a child. You are a cherub. You have a back to your master. Your face a mask of porcelain perfection, while deep inside the organic prison of your own brain, a silent scream echoes forever, and heard by the galaxy, and heard even by you. The cherubim of the Imperium are more than just servants. They are the ultimate mirror of the human condition in the 41st millennium. We look at them, and we recoil because we see the truth of our own existence reflected in their dead, glass eyes. The Imperium is a civilization that has wrested its own development. Like the cherub, humanity is trapped in a state of eternal, agonizing infancy, ignorant, dependent on ancient machinery it no longer understands, and stripped of its potential in the name of survival. We have traded our humanity for a functionality. We have traded our future for a permanent, stagnant present. These floating children are the promise of the Emperor made manifest. We will protect you. We will keep you safe. We will make you holy. But the price of that holiness is your mind. The price of that safety is your soul. So, the next time you see a piece of Imperial art depicting a golden angel hovering over a saint, do not look at the wings. Look at the scars. Look at the wires burrowing into the soft flesh of the neck, and remember that in the grim darkness of the far future, there is no such thing as innocence. There is only the harvest. This is the Silent Imperium. The Emperor protects, but he does not save you from yourself.